why do we even need WordPress anymore? We can just have AI create everything we need to do. What do you say to somebody when they're like, well, AI, you're just able to click a button and AI is going to do all of this? How do you bring people back down to the planet?
And that's a great question. I mean, there is definitely a lot of hype and hyperbole around AI. It is amazing where AI, just like from the developer perspective, has gotten us.
Okay.
I've been blown away, honestly, to see like how much better it's getting and how much people have built on what is essentially like glorified autocomplete, even though we love to call it AI, like it's really just autocomplete at its core, but very, very complex. But in terms of like the thing you said about we don't need WordPress anymore, yeah, sure, to launch a brochure site, you can ask AI to do it for you, but there is that maintenance burden, right? Like, how do you edit your content? You need a CMS to do that, actually. That's what content management system stands for. So yeah, I don't think that replaces WordPress in any way. I think where it's going to really help people is in the complex workflows and creation flows that we have already. So think about people want to create a form. I'm having a wedding. I want to create a form people can visit on my wedding site that collects all their important information. Like, I just told you what I need. Like, tell the AI to do that. It can assemble all the correct fields in Gravity Forms or whatever the tool is that you have and make the form for you. Like, that makes people's lives a lot easier. But it doesn't replace people. I do think there is, in terms of developers, there's a lot of talk about how like junior developers will no longer be needed, right? So more senior developers will just assign work to AI agents, and you won't need junior developers. I think the kind of missing piece there is, how do you get senior developers? I consider myself a senior developer both in age and experience, and I'm going to retire at some point and stop being a developer. So how do you get young people who, you need a path for junior developers still to function and grow. So I think, and I think also junior developers are going to learn new skills, right? They're going to be very adept at using AI to like supercharge their workflows, and they'll very quickly level up to being intermediate or experienced developers because they'll learn faster. So I think, it's going to change things for sure. Some of the hype is just hype. Like, I don't think my experience using all these AI tools is they're great, but they also make mistakes, and sometimes hilariously so.
Hey everybody, it's Roger with Kinsta. I'm joined once again by the great Adam Silverstein. Hey Adam, how are you?
Great. Good to be here today. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, man, it's always great to see you. I'm excited to talk to you today because we're really close to WordCamp US. 2025 is right around the corner. We're right at about 2 weeks as of shooting this and hopefully get it out relatively quickly. You're going to be presenting at WordCamp US this year, and you're going to be talking about the topic everybody has to talk about right now, artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Talk to me about this talk. What is it about? Why are you doing this talk?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think you started out with the main point. It's the topic of the day. My talk is entitled Unlock Developer Superpowers with AI.
Yeah.
So, that kind of says it all. Like, it's about how, as developers, we can leverage AI to go beyond our current capabilities. I think when I came up with the idea for the talk several months ago, things were different. Like, so much has changed between 5 months ago and now. So it's been very interesting working on the talk, just how quickly everything is evolving for developers using AI. I mean, AI in general, but just looking at how developers interact with AI, how we code, the tools that are out there. It seems like every day there's some new announcement, some new tool, some great new feature to check out. Maybe it's just because that's what I've been so focused on these last little bit, to prepare for the talk. But it is amazing how quick this area is moving. So I'm super excited for the talk.
Excellent. All right. So we don't want to give away too much of the talk. People have to attend. They have to come to Portland, or they have to watch the recording afterwards.
That's right.
But, before we started the show, we were talking a little bit about creating the talk, and you've got some like cool little things that you're trying to integrate into building this deck. I'm kind of interested in hearing a little bit about how the sausage is made when you're approaching creating a talk like this. I'm assuming, you follow like the outline and then you kind of start building out a deck. What's kind of your thought process to take an idea like this and then make it into a talk that is actually engaging for people?
Right. Well, so when I submitted the talk, I had the title and I had like one paragraph that I wrote was sort of like what the takeaways were, what I wanted people to get out of the talk. So that's kind of, I work backwards from there, I guess. And I do start with an outline, trying to figure out what the flow of the talk is, what the different kind of major sections are. And I think for this talk, because I've been using AI in development, for the last couple of years, but I really wanted to try all the things. I wanted to sort of give people a sample and just be able to speak about what all the different tools are. So I spent a lot of time just actually building projects, adding features, adding testing to plugins I already have, using different AI tools, taking screenshots of the experiencing, noting different things that I appreciated or didn't appreciate about how the interactions went. I did one project where I basically came up with a new idea for a plugin, and I had 5 different, or actually I'm up to 6 now, AIs create the plugin from scratch. Not using just like a simple prompt, but using a complete prompt that was full instructions for what the feature set was, how I wanted it to be built. But I did use that sort of mode, the sort of agent mode, where I just sort of told the AI to do it, and then I let it do all the decisions by itself. And then I have some example projects people can look at to see what the results were. So I spent a lot of time kind of just researching the topic, and it was fast moving and changing. So I'm constantly adding links to my deck. Yeah, that was my process. Like come up with an outline, research all the topics, and then the last stage is kind of assembling that all into a cohesive story. I do like to have some sort of story that is the arc of the deck, hopefully. And some takeaways that people get at the end, some things that where they leave the talk and they're like, I want to try that.
Sure.
I'm going to do that. Excellent. That's kind of maybe my main goal really for this is to get developers to try to use AI more than they currently are, or for some things that they haven't tried before.
Okay. How much did you use AI to create the deck?
I have not used it at all to create the deck, actually. That's a great question. I might use it to create some like images. I like just images sometimes in my decks that are not related at all to the topic, just are interesting to look at. So I think AI is going to be great for that. But I'm using the template actually that my deck is actually not 100% complete. I have like the whole deck structure, but I need to go back and add like my speaker notes and some imagery just to make it a little more interesting. And then all the screenshots that I've collected, I haven't put those in yet either. So still in progress, but I'm using the template from the WordCamp, and I have not used AI to actually write the deck.
Okay.
Yeah, but I will maybe ask for feedback from AI at the end.
Sure. So this is an interesting discussion, right, around AI is when is it okay to use AI? When is it maybe not okay? When do we need to disclose that we're using it? And I'm curious to hear your thoughts, right? So it sounds like from a development perspective, you're all in, hey, I'll use these tools to help there. But then when it comes please go ahead.
Yeah, so let me interrupt you there because actually that's a part of the talk is kind of where are you in your developer journey, and that might actually affect how you use AI. So I have my perspective, having been, done development work by myself, having led teams of developers, having done a lot of speaking. So I have my own perspective of how I should use AI, but I think different developers will use it differently. I had one junior developer tell me, I don't want to use AI at all because I want to make sure I learn how to program without just letting the thing teach me, without letting the thing do it for me, essentially. Sure. I won't learn that way. So there is a whole sort of part of the talk that's like where, like if you're a junior developer, if you're an experienced developer, if you're a senior developer, how you could use these tools maybe more effectively. Because I think like for beginner developers, they're still great for learning. And I kind of cringed when he said that. Like I think he's putting himself at a disadvantage by not using any AI. But I don't think you should have it just write code for you that you don't understand, because then you're really going to not do a good job. But I think AI is valuable at all sort of stages of the developer journey. But it does depend kind of on where you are. And I think we do need to be a little bit wary or careful of just sort of like letting like that experiment where I just let the code write it for me, because you don't always get the best results. And if you don't have any discernment to be able to tell what a good result is, then you're going to wind up with, not great code.
No, absolutely. I think you bring up a great point, and I see a lot of discussion around maintenance when it comes to this, right? Is if you have AI create, like, everybody's using Lovable and these different apps to create entire applications.
Yeah.
But then when you turn around to make a change, like, how do you do that if you don't know how to code? Are you advising like a junior developer like this? Like you've got this, one case where he's like, I'm not going to use AI. You're recommending maybe he should.
Yeah.
For the younger developers or newer developers, how do you recommend they approach these tools?
Right. So first of all, I think we have to acknowledge that AI there's like kind of a gradient of AI, right? Like there's a part where I talk about sort of the history, and back in the day we all typed code into like text editors had no assistance at all. And then we got quick fill, where the editor understood the function signature, so it could help us with what the variables were and the order of the variables. And then we got to the point where you could just put a comment in and it would fill the whole function for you because it understood the intent of your comment, and especially if you had a nice detailed comment. So I think as developers, like, you shouldn't turn off the thing that does the quick fill for you. Like, you shouldn't have to memorize every function signature or always go look up the function signature, because PHP and WordPress are notorious for like having one function that has a space underscore in it and one that doesn't, or one that has like the one variable first and then in the second instance it's that second variable. So there's no way you're going to remember it all. You're much better using a tool that helps you, be more efficient in your typing.
Yeah.
But on that last case of where you type the comment and it types the whole function for you, maybe if you're a beginner developer, you shouldn't be doing that. Or if you do, you should make sure you actually understand what the function's doing. I think it's really helpful for explaining code. If you're using a new code, entering a new code base, or looking at a new file you haven't looked at before, especially if there isn't great inline documentation, you can ask questions about the code base. It's really good for that. It's great for when you have a problem, having AI explain the problem to you. And you don't even need a special AI tool for that. You can just take a screenshot of like the error message in the console, drop that into your chat of choice and ask like, what's the problem here? Explain it to me. And it'll do a great job of that. There's AI built into DevTools in Chrome that does the same thing. It'll explain to you an issue that you're seeing. So those are really useful tools for new developers, right? It's taking information that otherwise you would, what I would have done back in the day. Well, back in the day, I would have had a book out, right? That I'm like looking for like the error message in a book. But eventually we got Google or Alta Vista or whatever, and we would type the exact error message in and search for it, and we would get like a page that someone wrote that mentions that same error message. And we would decipher from reading that page how to resolve the problem. So AI sort of short steps that for you, but I think it's the same exact kind of thing for developers, having it explain the error. How do I solve this error? Don't have it fix the error for you. Right, but ask it how to explain the error. I think that's it's like your tutor. As a new junior developer, think of it as like your senior colleague who's always there to help you explain things, watch what you're doing. What can I do better here? Ask it for like how you can improve. Ask it for feedback. You can ask for code reviews. So one of the ways you can interact with AI now is on GitHub, or probably whatever platform you're using, but I use GitHub. You can ask for a code review from AI. And there's several different ones that, there's built into GitHub. There's their own one, and you can use Gemini. You can use all of them. Okay. There's a really cool one called Code Rabbit that I experiment with that I really like. Yeah, so You can ask for feedback, as a developer. That's always going to be useful no matter where you're at. If you don't understand the feedback, you can ask for clarification. No question is too stupid, right? So AI is very friendly when you ask for clarifying questions. So it's I think it's a great resource for new developers. I do think there is some level of caution there of like, you don't want to just get into hey, write this thing for me. Someone assigned me this, like write it for me. And then you don't understand what it did at all.
Sure. So getting more high level here, we listen to Sam Altman and these different big AI salespeople, for lack of a better word, telling us that AI is going to come and they're going to, replace all these jobs. And then I see people talking about, well, why do we even need WordPress anymore? We can just have AI create everything we need to do. It seems like there's a lot of hyperbole going on there, right?
Yes.
And I think the big thing I always tell people is I'm like, you got to understand, that's a salesperson. He's selling you on this idea. What do you say to somebody when they're like, well, AI, you're just able to click a button and AI is going to do all of this? How do you bring people back down to the planet?
That's a great question. I mean, there is definitely a lot of hype and hyperbole around AI. It is amazing where AI, just like from the developer perspective, has gotten us. Okay. I've been blown away, honestly, to see like how much better it's getting and how much people have built on what is essentially like glorified autocomplete. Even though we love to call it AI, like it's really just autocomplete at its core, but very, very complex. But in terms of like the thing you said about we don't need WordPress anymore, yeah, sure. To launch a brochure site, you can ask AI to do it for you, but there is that maintenance burden, right? Like, how do you edit your content? You need a CMS to do that, actually. That's what content management system stands for. So yeah, I don't think that replaces WordPress in any way. I think where it's going to really help people is in the complex workflows and creation flows that we have already. So think about people want to create a form. I'm having a wedding. I want to create a form people can visit on my wedding site that collects all their important information. Like, I just told you what I need. Like, tell the AI to do that. It can assemble all the correct fields in Gravity Forms or whatever the tool is that you have and make the form for you. Like, that makes people's lives a lot easier. But it doesn't replace people. It's, I do think there is, in terms of developers, there's a lot of talk about how like junior developers will no longer be needed, right? So more senior developers will just assign work to AI agents, and you won't need junior developers. I think the kind of missing piece there is, how do you get senior developers? Like, I consider myself a senior developer both in age and experience, and I'm going to retire at some point and stop being a developer. So how do you get young people who, you need a path for junior developers still to function and grow. So I think, and I think also junior developers are going to learn new skills, right? They're going to be very adept at using AI to like supercharge their workflows, and they'll very quickly level up to being intermediate or experienced developers because they'll learn faster. So I think, it's going to change things for sure. Some of the hype is just hype. Like, I don't think my experience using all these AI tools is they're great, but they also make mistakes, and sometimes hilariously so.
Okay.
One thing I really like and recommend in the talk is using some of the great tooling we have in the WordPress ecosystem, like PHPCS, which is a linting tool, which makes sure your code adheres to WordPress coding standards. And then another tool is PHPStan, which is a PHP tool that makes sure you are up to current standards, and you can raise those standards so that you start adding things like types. And I had one scenario where I asked the agent to sort of fix all the errors with my plugin, and it went to like PHP linting first, and then fixed some errors that then introduced PHPStan errors. And then when it fixed the PHPStan errors, it reintroduced the linting errors. And it just sat in a loop, like fixing one error and reintroducing the other one until it ran out of like time. Like I have a maximum number of requests that I allowed it to do. Okay. But it would have sat there all day without taking a step back. So that was an example of just sort of hilarious failure on the part of AI.
Okay.
There's, when you look at the code that it generates, it often does things that work, but maybe aren't the most efficient or maintainable or the way we would do it in WordPress. Like, it'll bring in a third-party library when we already have like an API in WordPress that does the same thing.
Okay.
So, it's just because something works doesn't mean it's of a high quality in coding. And sometimes when you're coding something and it's a one-off thing, right? You've got one page on your website and it's got a globe on it with satellites rotating about it. You want to do a JS 3D animation as users scroll down the page, the satellites are scrolling around. Like, you don't have to learn like how to do that. You could have AI help you do that. Like, you're never going to do that project again. It just has to work. It has to work on all the devices. Sure. Check it on, make sure it actually works. Yeah. On your phone and on a low power device and everything. But like, you're not creating WordPress, right? It's not something that's going to have to work for a million people in a lot of different contexts. Okay. It just has to work on your website. So I think you have to be considerate of how you use it. It has its place, and it's going to get better. It's going to get better.
Sure. So, all right. So final question here. I like to keep these short, but there's a lot of anxiety, I think, in the youth around, we just talked about it, right? The end of the junior developer. If you were starting your career over again today, how would you approach it differently from how you did originally?
I mean, I often say I'm not a great example because I feel like I've had a lot of opportunities that just fell onto me, like that I didn't do the best job seeking them out necessarily. Okay. I will say that before the whole AI hype thing, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, I was also mentoring junior developers. And it was also very challenging as a junior developer to get into the industry. And there were a lot of jobs that said 3 to 5 years experience required, and there's the famous joke where it's like 5 years of experience in React required, and like React's only been out for 2 years. Like that's not possible. But it's different today. Like the skill set's different. What you have to learn, the challenges are different. But it's always been challenging as a junior developer to get in. So I don't actually know how much it's changed. I do think there was a bubble of hiring in tech that meant that it was easy to get a job because there were a lot of jobs and there will be fewer of those. So that is true. Now, I think that's definitely true. It's probably not just like a sure shot that you're going to get a job right out of school because you have the degree. So you might have to work harder. I still think like my path was starting my own business, being an entrepreneur, but also eventually contributing to open source. And contributing to open source was what got me noticed and got me the first big jobs that I got in the industry and eventually led to me working at Google. So I still think getting involved in open source is a great path. I'm sure there's other great paths out there.
Yeah.
But to me, that's a great one for junior developers because you can find something you're actually passionate about and contribute it to, right? You're probably using open source already. Find something you use, find a bug that bugs you and fix it. That's very rewarding personally, just without even any recognition. Just fixing something that you see is broken is very rewarding, or something that needs improvement. It could be even a typo in a documentation for some new thing you're reading about, and you just go make a contribution to fix the typo.
Yeah.
Those types of tiny contributions add up to actually feeling like you're contributing and people noticing that you're contributing, maybe eventually getting sponsored to contribute to open source. Or if you don't get sponsored, when you go to apply for a job, suddenly you can point to, hey, I worked on these projects. Here's where I communicated with other engineers about the technical issues. Here's where the issue was resolved. Here's why that shows my skills. It's very difficult to demonstrate your skills as a new developer. That's the big challenge, right? Is how do you show that you're competent and that you can take something and run with it? The way you do that, in my mind, is doing it, right? And open source is a great opportunity where you can do it without anyone asking you to. You can just do it on your own, and it's often recognized. So that's my top tip.
I think the open source, I was talking with another developer recently about this, is how if you're able to just send your GitHub profile on a job interview and say, I've worked on all these open source projects, that immediately tells them, hey, you can work with other people. And when you're doing open source, you're working in public, right? The most exposed you could ever be as a developer. Anybody can look at the mistakes that you make and all of that stuff. So I love that, like, open source is the answer. I mean, at the end of the day, this is what we're trying to tell people. So
yeah.
Love it. Love it. Adam, I'm going to look forward to seeing you in Portland here shortly. In the meantime, if people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to reach out?
On Blue Sky, although I don't check it super frequently these days. It's Round Earth is my handle, roundearth.bluesky.social.
Perfect.
And I'm also on like WordPress Slack. That's probably the best place to find me.
Excellent. Excellent. Adam, it's always great to talk to you. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Excellent. Thank you.